Hey guys, Brian from MotoTech, making a video today about how to set the ignition timing on a YZ250 and to make adjustments for power delivery. The reason I'm not using a bike for this video is you can't see a lot of what I'm going to show you with the bike assembled as easily, so it would be a nightmare to do a video. But the spec is 7/1000ths of an inch before top dead center is your baseline for the factory setting. This is done with a dial indicator down the spark plug hole. Some of the brands like Motion Pro won't fit between the cylinder and the frame rail. If you have the engine out, then it doesn't matter. You can use any brand. A lot of the cheap like Amazon ones are a little bit lower profile and do fit. You might have to modify one. You might buy one that doesn't work, but there is ones out there that they do make that fit. You can make your own too, modify an old spark plug, but what you do is put the dial indicator in the plug hole, roll the engine forward till the number peaks out in the dial indicator and starts to go back down. You go back and forth until you find the plateau for top dead center. Then zero your gauge, double check, and this is top dead center. There is a second method to find top dead center that's technically more accurate, but splitting hairs, not super necessary. You can put a piston stop down the hole, put a degree wheel on the flywheel, pointer off the cases, roll the engine until you hit the piston stop, mark the degree wheel, spin it the opposite direction until you hit the piston stop again, mark the degree wheel, and the number between those two is true top dead center. So you could use a combination of those two methods to get your top dead center. But then once you have your top dead center with the dial indicator in the hole, you twist the flywheel clockwise, so backwards before top dead center, 7/1000ths of an inch. Once you've reached that, you leave the flywheel where it is. That is establishing your baseline. So then what you're going to look for, pointing down and forward on the flywheel, is this line. That line should line up with this line on the stator plate. So this line right here, this raised line in the center of this boss, you loosen these screws for the stator plate, twist it so that the stator plate lines up with this without twisting this. This stays in that position. Once these lined up, you are at your factory setting for ignition timing. So this is your baseline that you make all of your other adjustments off if you want to play with your ignition timing. Those lined up in ideal scenarios will also line up with this mark right here. You can see this line right here that extends up onto that raised area. This is the mark that a lot of people just blindly go off of for setting the stator when they are assembling an engine. It's usually accurate, not always. Depending on the machining of the crank, it can be off. Even with a factory crank, it can be off a tiny bit. Like the cheap aftermarket cranks, like a Wiseco, sometimes they're so far off, you actually can't even set your ignition timing to the factory spec. You run out of adjustment on the stator plate. Don't recommend those cranks for a bunch of reasons, but that is a super common thing on those. But yeah, so if those don't line up, the marks on these don't line up with the mark on the case, it's fine. If you want to have an established baseline so you don't lose track of where you have located your stock setting, you can color on your case and on your stator plate, and then you can use a scribe to make a line, and then you can use that as like your home mark. So you know that's stock. So any adjustment you make off of there, if you want to go back to stock, you can go to there. Any adjustment you make without using a dial indicator, you can then make down there with the method I'm going to show you. This will make your life way easier. You can make quick adjustments at the track without disassembling the bike. You just pull a case cover off. 5 screws, you're in there. The method for this is, this stator plate is 110 millimeters across. The circumference of this, the distance around, is 345.6 millimeters. You divide that by 360 and you get your adjustments. So 0.96 millimeters of twist on this is 1 degree of adjustment. this is so close to 1 millimeter. It's less than 0.02 of an inch for people that use non-metric, human hair. So what I'll do is use Allen wrenches, just the long end of an Allen wrench, point it straight in, go off your marks, and if you use a 1 millimeter to offset your marks, you're making a 1 degree ignition timing change. If you use a 2.5 millimeter Allen wrench, you're making a 2.5 degree timing change from your baseline. It's really that simple. So if you twist your stator plate, not the flywheel, you want that in its position if you're still going off the stock stuff. But if you twist your stator plate clockwise, you are advancing your ignition timing. If you turn it counterclockwise, you're backing off on your ignition timing, and I use that instead of the standard industry term of retarding the timing, because it gets you banned on social media because the robots don't know the difference. So yeah, if I say you're type out, back off on timing when I'm talking to somebody, that's why. You have advanced and back off. When you change those, twisting them in that direction, the clockwise for advanced and the counterclockwise for backing off, generally what's going to happen is advancing it is going to give you more down low and mid-range hit, but it's going to sign off a little bit earlier, and it's going to give you an increased chance of detonation. So you don't want detonation, it's going to hurt the engine, but you can go advanced from stock safely in a lot of cases. But your jetting has to be good, and you have to be mindful of if you're hearing pinging or crackling, those are signs that damage is being done to the engine, so definitely be careful. You don't have a good ear for it, you might just want to not go advanced. Most of the time on a YZ, people are backing off on the timing. Smooth the hit, get more over rev. It does the exact opposite of advancing it. So it'll have a softer hit, more over rev, less of a chance of detonation. There's a lot of different reasons you might go one or the other. Mud race, slippery conditions. Like I said, this is stuff you can change quick at the track. So muddy conditions from overwatering or rain, or slow race, real tight conditions where the bike's going to run hotter, you can back off in your ignition timing and take a little bit of the hit out of the bike and get a lot better results with traction and stuff. But like I said, these are generalizations. With a two-stroke, it's all about the entire package, everything working together. So you might make a change and it might not do what's the generalizations for your power delivery, because all of a sudden the timing's working together with whatever other mods you have going on, or a combination of stuff. So really encourage people to play around with this, and you'll see it'll completely change the characteristics of your bikes, kind of like changing the cylinder head. Those are really the two things that make it the easiest to change power delivery, and this is free. So I always encourage people to play with this, and you can further dial in your bike once you've done your pipe and head and jetting and all this other stuff, reeds, and it just gives you another tool in your bag for being able to fine tune. And like I said, this all applies to other bikes. It's just different measurements for where their baseline is from top dead center, the circumference of this. You're not good at math, you can use AI or Google or whatever, do math for you. It's really not that hard. So if you guys have any questions, just let me know. But that's how you go about it on a YZ250. Have a good day.